I do look at pain a lot, and I do look at what people choose to show and what people hide. And I think that a lot of us walk around with masks on. You know, confident, successful, you know, look at me, I'm doing really well in life. And usually that's not true. Everybody's got stuff. And so I think that people who've gone through trauma, I find them fascinating, and I think that the concept of the skin that we're in and the face that we portray is usually so different to what's going on inside. So my work, whether it be painting or sculpture, I'm looking at the ideas of that difference and that struggle that we as humans have living in mess, because we are. I mean, humans are messy, life is messy, and some of the paintings I do have, they usually, I was thinking about it, they're usually women, and they are usually just this one person sitting there, and the one person is looking directly at the viewer. Sometimes they have blindfolds on, and I paint the blindfolds because that's, I guess, something that I'm trying to portray, is that we don't know what's going to happen next in our lives. We don't know as people. We think we have control over so much, but we don't. So I think we are blind to what's going to happen next. And every new second is one that we've never experienced before. We may have been in similar circumstances, however, that next second is completely different. So I think we do fly blind as humans. We collect all the evidence to be able to trot through life and get on the best we can, but we don't know. So yeah, that's what I like to play with, those things of the skin that we're in, and I think that goes back to when I was young. I'm Jo Harris, and I am an artist based in Auckland, Tamaki, Makaurau. So, growing up as a child, I think I was very good and looking for roles and trying to fit in. I was always really tall and so stuck out, and had red hair, curly red hair. And I remember being the second tallest at my primary school. So I remember buying clothes and shoes tricky to fit me. I wasn't enormous, like I wasn't, giant, very, very fat, but I was just really big and broad and had giant feet. So fitting in was a challenge because I was told by society that I didn't fit in. So by the inability to buy clothes that other kids wore, and shoes. So I was always trying to find the rules to fit in, yet standing out. So it was always a balance, trying to make that work as a kid, which carried on to my older years too. I was always really creative as a kid, and my mum was creative, my grandparents were creative. My grandmother, at the time of growing up, she had joined an art club and was painting, so she painted with oils and did florals and landscapes, and so there was always art in the family, but there was always art as something that you didn't do as a career. So there was always that push that art was something that you did after your career as a hobby. So I was always making and drawing and painting as a kid, and I think that going back to Standard 4 at primary school, I had a teacher called Mr. Gilsenan, and he was this really old man. And he was old, it wasn't like I was a little kid, and they always seem so old. He was this older guy who could draw. He was amazing at drawing, and all the kids in the class, well, the ones who were interested, would want his pictures that he used to draw, and I finally got one. He gave me one, and that was so exciting. I remember hanging it on my wall and so he was a very kind man as well. Oh, brings tears. And then I think at high school, there was always that push, it's always been in the back of my mind, and not just my mind, but growing up in a society where being a success is crucial, and you do your planning and you do your goal setting, and you get to here to be a da-da, and the da-da usually has to involve making money and a steady income, and of course the art side of things never fell into that. So, and that is, I think, my family's story too, of the encouragement, well, for my story, the encouragement of my mum to do whatever, and be a success in whatever. Still there was society pushing back at me, and me still trying to fit into and not be too standing out, and not to taking such big risks, because it's risky to say go to art school and really commit yourself to a profession that has no set path. And so I always came back from that, and so I never went to art school. And but going back, I had this great teacher, art teacher at high school, Mr. Hanton, and his wife used to come and do relief work as well. And he was this guy who had big beard, and he had these big glasses, like they were big, serious, arty looking, cool, plastic, heavy framed glasses. And he was really encouraging and kind, and his wife was, she dressed fabulously. And so all these art teachers that I came across always had this sense of style, and I guess living their own truth from not only from their soul, and making art and encouraging kids to make art, but in the way that they move through life. And I question too whether that was my impression, because I was, probably 15, 16, so I had kind of no real idea of what real life was, having a job, having somewhere to live, paying bills, blah, blah, blah. But they just seemed these ethereal, amazing creatures that were really inspirational and looked like they had it all going on. I think as getting older now, 51, which I'm lucky to get to, I've come to a point where I have, I've lived these rules, and I'm bored of those rules. And in my careers, I've tried to work in corporate, I've tried to work in government departments, doing kind of very administrative, still a little bit creative kind of roles, and it's been like a round peg in a square hole. It's impossible, can't do it. So things that I do have to have purpose. So now I have set up my own business as a therapist, as an arts therapist, which I trained in and graduated in 2013. So I now have my own business helping people with their stuff that they carry with them, and that frees up space for me to make art. So I have made my own path, finally, yeah, I've taken that jump and it was huge, and now I find myself able to dedicate time to making art and to getting it out there into galleries, and yeah, it's quite exciting. Yeah. I am really interested in the concept of survival and resilience and the messiness of humans. Yeah, I'm fascinated. I looked at journalism as a career once upon a time because I want to know about people and I want to know about their lives, and I'm just fascinated with people. And I think that one thing that fascinates me is the Second World War and the concentration camps and the incredible horrificness of how people did that to other people. And so the stories of the suffering within those camps and within those, that whole period of time, especially for Jewish people, is so atrocious. I find it really fascinating how some people could and did survive those terrible, terrible times. I guess that I'm drawn to making art and listening to people's stories and helping people to find their stories and own their stories and sit down and have a cup of tea with the hard stuff stories, is to make a difference, really. It's to tell stories. I'm putting my story and my reflection on world stories and people's stories out into the world. And sometimes I think, well, what the fuck is that about, and why bother? And sometimes I wake up and I think, my story, well, what is that? That doesn't count. But I keep making it, and I think, my story is good enough to tell, and I think that's now, as an older woman, coming into my own as feeling stronger about myself and kind of planting my feet. I keep dipping my feet and my little toes into the water, doing one arts paper and then doing another arts paper when my daughter was young. And now I'm throwing myself into the art water, because I'm feeling that my story is, whilst it's unique, it's a universal story, and I hope that people will recognise themselves in some of the work that I make, and it will help them maybe recognise some things in themselves. And so it's not only personal stories that I tell, but it is, I dip into the political mess that we're in with violence to children. And I recently made a piece that was using a broken mattress. Like I'm drawn to using recycled and thrown away materials a lot. And so with this mattress sprung base, I told the story of the death and the murders of babies, which is horrific, and it is something that is usually not front page news anymore. And so I wanted to make a piece that would make people stop and bring it to front of mind again, because it's important. And I don't know what the answer is to stopping violence towards children, but I believe that it's a story that we have to keep telling. And as an artist, I think it is important to me to tell that story and to keep it front of mind. So art can play a role in both personal reflections from the viewer's perspective, and also to look at those bigger issues that are happening in the world. So my hopes for the future in my art making, they are, I want to find a collaborative space to work in, and so that's one of the holes and the blocks in my art making, is that I'm not surrounded by people. I'm an extrovert and I thrive on other people's energy, so to be making art at home by myself is not good for me. So that is one of my hopes, and also that my work gets shown a lot more, and in 10 years time I'd like to be known in New Zealand as a good artist and somebody who brings important work to the art table as such, and make work that is not confined to being in my small art room that I work in. I want to go big, and I want to make big sculpture, and I want to paint big, and I want just that space to be able to do that. And I think that one day I will go and do my Masters in Fine Arts. Now that I've dipped my toe, I'm ready to jump into that also and get a little bit more understanding about the whys and the context of the art that I make. But then sometimes I think, well, academic, just make what you make, Joe, and that's my story. Yeah.